So we're just going to read and translate the story as it appears in CHUMASH BaMidbar, Parshat Shelach. I'm just going to read along and translate relatively loosely. This is the way we're always going to do the stories. Whenever we do a story, the purpose of discussing it first is for you to, first of all, for you to realize that the first thing which is most clearly clear is that the story is completely unclear, right? Okay, for a famous story, we seem to have a lot of issues we're not clear about, and we're just going to read the book, and hopefully you'll see that it is even more unclear. And then we're going to take it apart slowly but surely. Let's just read the story as it appears in Parshat Shelach. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. So the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Shlach lecha anashim, send for yourself men. V'yaturu, and they will spy out at Eretz Canaan, the land of Canaan, asher ani noten l'bnei Yisrael, the land that I'm giving to the Jewish people. Ish echad, one man, l'matei avotav tishlachu, for each tribe of their forefathers you should send, kol nasi bahem. Each one should be the prince. So Moshe sent them from Midbar Paran, al pi Hashem, based on the word of God. Kulama nashim, they were all males. Rashi b'nei Israel hema, they were the heads of the Jewish people. V'elesh botam, and here are their names. Now, before we go through the names, what would it appear? What was God? Who is the first person or anybody to come up with this idea of spies? Where did the whole thing start with? God. And what does it seem that God says? Shlach lecha anashim. Shlach is a command. Send for yourself spies. And Moshe sent them al pi Hashem, based on the word of God. Now you're going to pop up and say, oh, but I can read Rashi, or I can read English, and pretend I read Rashi. Rashi is going to give you a certain translation. Or I once read the Medrash says, and it says, da-da-da-da-da. Right? Or I listened to a Torah tape. That's all very nice. But right now we're going to read the CHUMASH and see what it says. It's very nice that Rashi is going to, if you do know, he's going to retranslate the phrase not based on the normal Hebrew translation, and that's going to be a problem, and we're going to know why he does that. Because the purpose of the shir is not to find out what Rashi says. You don't need me to tell you what Rashi says. You can read the Rashi yourself. But the purpose of the shir is to figure out why would Rashi say that. It's not what I would have said. It's not the simple meaning. Then why did Rashi do that? Why didn't he leave the verse well enough alone? And when we figure out why Rashi said what he said, we'll then be able to better understand why the Ramban said, well, that's what Rashi says, but it's not correct, and it's not what the verse really means. And he'll say something else, which is also not what we would have said, and then we got to figure out how come no one likes our translation. So we're going to translate it straight and literal, because it's crucial that you see what the CHUMASH says, right, and what the oral tradition says it means, and what the commentaries are speculating. You've got to know the difference between what it says in the CHUMASH and, because there's all sorts of information floating around your head. Was Abraham thrown into a burning furnace? Because Nimrod, he was upset. Nimrod was wanted to worship idols, and he said, if you don't worship my idol, I'm going to throw you into the furnace. And Abraham said, go ahead, try me, and he threw him into the furnace. Everybody familiar with that story? Know that story? Is that story written in the CHUMASH?
No.
No, right? It's not written in the CHUMASH. Bilam had a donkey. Bilam, the famous prophet for the non-Jews, he had a donkey that talked to him. Is that written in the CHUMASH?
Yes.
Yes, that is. All right? There's tons of stuff. Little baby Moses, right? We're doing these parchas. Little baby Moses, where did his mother hide him? So in a basket in the water. Who found that baby Moses?
Daughter of Pharaoh.
Daughter of Pharaoh. What was her name? Excellent. Did it say that name in the CHUMASH? No. How did the daughter of Pharaoh get him out of the water?
Arm stretched out.
Her arm stretched out. Are you familiar with that idea that her arm stretched out? Right. Does it say that in the CHUMASH? No. Why would the Medrash say that? Right? So we're not doing that story because we're not doing sure. But we will eventually do that story. No. Why would the Medrash say that her arm stretched out? For what purpose? Where did it dream up that idea at all? Thank you. Now, so therefore, we're just reading the CHUMASH proper form. So it would appear that it was God's idea, and Moshe sent them based on what God said. What is their mission? Well, here are their names. These are their names. And we're going to skip verse 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And these are the names of the men that Moshe sent to spy the land. And Moshe called Hoshea ben Nun. He called him Yehoshua, which is a difficult verse because he's been called Yehoshua earlier already, if you remember, by the story of Matan Torah, which happened before the story, and we'll worry about that when the time comes. So Moshe sent them to spy the Eretz Canaan land, and here's what he said to them. And let's see what the mission is. So we now know that it was God's idea, and let's see what the mission was. The mission was, Negev, go to the south, Alitemetar, go to the mountains, Ritemetar Aretz, and see the land, Mahi, what it is. And the nation that is sitting there, Hechazaku Harafeh, are they strong, are they weak? Hama'atu Imrav, are they few or are they many? From that verse, what does it sound like? Is this a military mission or to see if it's a good or bad land? Military. Next verse. Umaha Aretz Asher Yoshevan, the land that they're sitting on. How Tovahi, is it good? Imra'ah, is it bad? Right? What does that sound like? Is it good or bad? How about the cities that they dwell in? Are they fortified or not? That sounds military. Is the land fat or is the land skinny? That sounds like it's good or bad. Is there a tree at all in the country? What are the odds that the answer is going to be yes? Hayesh ba'etzim and mitchazak tem, become strong, v'lochachtemi pri aretz, and take from the fruit of the land. And we're told that when did this take place? Hayamim yemei b'karei anavim, these were the days when the grapes ripened. Tradition, of course, does tell us that when did this take place? Approximately what time of year?
Tisha B'Av.
Tisha B'Av time, correct? That's the tradition tells us that. Where do they get that idea from? We'll see if we can figure out by the end of the story. Fine. They go through, they bring back grapes. We're not even going to deal with their return yet. So it would appear, Shelach Noshim, go send spies. God dreams up the idea, tells Moshe to do it. Moshe says, yes, sir. Sends out 12 spies. The mission does seem to have elements of both military mission and good or bad. Why does God want them to go spy out the land? Well, if it's military, you could say they're going to be fighting, they're going to conquer it, right? So militarily they need it. If it's a good, and when he asks them if it's a good or bad land, what do you think? Why would God be asking them to check that out? What do you think?
Morale.
Morale, meaning?
Incentive.
Incentive. They'll come back and say, wow, Gavaldic is super duper land. They'll be pumped. Okay? Excellent. Very good. And what goes wrong? We're going to worry about later. Let's not even get to that part of this. It's going to take us off to get there. Gavaldic. Now, truth is, as you know, the story of the spies appears again in the Torah. Where? In Chumash Devarim. That's why Chumash Devarim is called a Deuteronomy, right? Because it's a repeat of many of the stories in the Torah. So it just so happens that this little packet, if you keep on turning your pages, you will eventually come to the end of the Sukkim of BaMidbar, and you'll see a page that says Devarim, both in the Hebrew or the English. So it just so happens magically that Devarim happens to be right here in this little razzle-dazzle packet. Okay? This is the very beginning of Chumash Devarim. Do understand the context. The context was Moshe was rebuking them for all the times they muffed up in the desert. And Kivrasatava, and you made God angry here, and you made God angry there, and you did all this bad stuff. Okay? And then he continues the story. We're picking it up. And Pasuk... we'll pick it up in Pasuk Yud Tes. What the heck? Start with Pasuk Yud Tes, verse 19, Pasuk Yud Tes. Everybody got it? You with us? Kval. So then we traveled from Chorev. What was Chorev? Chorev was a nickname, another name for Har Sinai, right? And the question obviously is, why was it called Chorev? It was Har Sinai. Why was it called Sinai? It was Har Chorev. But we're not doing that. So we traveled from Chorev, and we walked through all this great and awesome desert wilderness. Asher we tend the one that you've seen. Derech Harmer, we went through the mountains of Amorik. Asher Tziva Hashem Elokeinu, with all God commanded us. Vanavo at Kadesh Barnea, and we got to Kadesh Barnea. Vomar Lechem, and we got to Kadesh Barnea, which is basically near the border area. I said to you, Basem El Hara, Mari Asher Hashem Elokeinu Notein Lanu. We've managed to get to the Hara Mori, which the good Lord is giving us. Look, see, there it is. Here's the land that God's giving you. Alei, go up, Reish, and take it over. Just like God has spoken, Al tiravi, al techas, do not be afraid. And what happened when I told you that? When I told you, there it is, let's go get it. Vatikuvun elai kulchem. All of you gathered to me. Vatomru. And you all said, Nishlach anashim lefanenu. Why don't we send some people in front of us? V'yachperu lanu et haaretz. And they will spy out the land. V'yashivu otanu davar derech asher naleba. And they will return to us. They will bring back a report of the roads that we'll take up there. V'te'arim asher navolayim, in the cities that we're going to come to. Whose idea was it to send spies? People. What was God's role in this? According to this story, what was God's role in this?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. It was the people's idea. And when they said, let's send spies, what does it appear their mission was? Let's read verse 22, Chav Beis again. And you all gathered to me, but when you said, let's send men in front of us, and they'll spy out the land, they'll bring back a report. What report are we interested in? The road that we will take to go up there, and the cities which we will come to. Sounds like what? Good, bad, or military?
No,
military. Military. And what, by and large, was the feeling in this room? Sending spies for a military mission, is that generally a good or bad thing?
Good.
Generally good. We don't really like miracles, by and large. And what is Moshe's response? And in my eyes, it was a great idea. The Shema took 12 people, 12 people, one from each tribe. And you went up to the mountain of Nakalachkol, you got to Nakalachkol, you spied it out. And you brought fruit from the land, and you brought the fruit back. And you brought back report, you said to Tavaris, that's all the land that God giving us is a great land. Well, but you guys didn't want to go. According to this version, what did the spies do wrong? Nothing. Right? Nothing. Whose idea was it? Moshe. And the people's. Moshe thought it was a good idea. It was a military mission. And they went and they spied it out. And they didn't say anything wrong. The Jewish people decided not to go. According to the version in Shelach, God came up with the idea. God told Moshe to send them. Right? We don't know what Moshe's opinion was. I mean, why should he have an opinion? God told him what to do. God told him what to do. He didn't need to have an opinion. Right? And the mission was both military and good, bad. And the opinion was that the problem with spies is going to be that they're going to say it's unconquerable. Though here we're not told that they ever said that. That's a contradiction between the stories. Not to mention one other small problem. For those whose Hebrew is good, don't lose your place. I saw you have two hands. Hold your hands here and go back to the first. What verb is used in CHUMASH BaMidbar for the word to spy out? What's the Hebrew word? Go ahead, Dr. Vayatur. Latur. Etaret. Okay, that's the Hebrew word. Right. What's the normal Hebrew word for spies? When Joshua sent spies, they're called meraglim. Right? Go back to Chumash Devarim. What verb is used? Look at Pasuk Chav Beis, when the Jewish people, right by Shlishi, when the Jewish people come up with the idea. What verb did they use? What do they want the people, these guys, to do? Yachperu. Which would literally mean chofer. Anybody in Hebrew? To dig. Achpor, chapiraz, digging, to excavate. Dig out the land. Change of verb. And when the spies went, what did they do in Chumash Devarim in Pasuk Chav Daled? Vayaknu vayelu ahara vayavo al Nachal Eshkol. And what did they do when they got to Nachal Eshkol? What verb? Vayiraglu osam, meraglim. They spied it. So in Chumash BaMidbar, the verb used is v'yatur. In Chumash Devarim, the verb used is v'yachperu, but when describe what they did, they don't even use either of those verbs. They use the verb v'yiraglu. Why the switch of verbs? We probably will not answer that. But that's the famous question. The reason I ask the question is because that's how you have to look. That's how you have to look at a pasuk.
Is one verb more aggressive than the other?
Something has to be somewhere. Just like everybody knows there's a difference between Vayidaber and Vayomer, right? The most common, classic Rashi. Vayidaber Hashem al Moshe Lemor, Vayomer Hashem can't be the same thing. So we all know there's a difference between Vayidaber and Vayomer, right? There has to be differences in verbs. There's no synonyms in the Torah, right? Absolutely correct. Gewaltig. So, that is our major problem. Basically, there's going to be two approaches how to resolve the contradiction between CHUMASH BaMidbar, where the story is originally written, which seems to say that God dreamed up the idea, and the version in Dvarim, which seems to say that the people dreamed up the idea. And that's going to be your crucial issue, because once you got to start somewhere, right? Because we have a few issues. Whose idea was it? What was the purpose of the mission? Was it a good thing or bad thing? What was Moshe's position in this whole business? And then what went wrong, right? No matter how you win the story, and you got to be consistent all the way through. You can't say God came up with a mission, but it was a wrong idea, and Moshe thought it was a bad idea. Well, right? The story got to make sense. All your details got to fit in, okay? All your details got to fit in. So obviously, we always start with Rashi. Rashi is your classic. Rashi, by and large, explains stories and deals with issues in the verses based on Chazal, based on the traditional, the Midrashim. That's usually his approach, rather than an original approach of his own. He doesn't usually say a lot of stuff of his own. He picks and chooses the midrashim that he chooses to pick, right? That is true. And if we were really, really doing an in-depth study of Rashi, obviously every time he quotes a medrash, he would go back to the original source of the medrash to see if there are other midrashim that Rashi chose not to pick. Then you got to, why did he pick that medrash over another medrash? Is Rashi quoting the medrash 100% faithfully? Sometimes Rashi paraphrases the medrash, and you got to find why did he do that, right? But obviously we're not going to go that far into Rashi's. So let's take this on. We're going to start. We're going to start with Chumash Dvarim. Funny enough. Let's start there.